Cosplayers of Reddit, what's the cringiest interaction you've had at an event? By the way, there's gonna be a lot of character names in this video. I apologize in advance if I say them wrong. Was cosplaying Black Cat from Spider-Man. It was a very tight and form-fitting costume, and I opted not to wear underwear because you could very clearly see the lines in the costume if I did. Had some guy come up behind me and unzip my suit, which wouldn't have been so bad if the zipper didn't go all the way down to the bottom of my butt. For 10 seconds, my pale back and butt were very exposed. Dude, this is 100% not okay. Yeah, and the security was non-existent. It was just staff, mostly female, and nothing was done. It was a cute little con, and it was in its first year, I think. They didn't know what to expect, and it probably wasn't that. Unless you're going to a major convention, I'd expect security and staff to be pretty bad. I would assume most of the budget would go to securing talent for the cons, so the rest is a free-for-all. But screw the guy that did this to this cosplayer. I witnessed a sussy bear cosplay that is associated with kidnapping children throw a little girl over his shoulder and run off. Little girl was fine, but later told me and the group that we had been dancing with she didn't know the guy, so that's pretty sus. It was probably some idiot being in character for laughs. That said, he's lucky he didn't get killed. Jesus, dude, you're going to pretend to kidnap a child? Yeah, this type of behavior at cons is all too common and needs to stop. I think it's gotten better over the years, at least I hope it has, but being in character half the time feels like an excuse for people to be creepy or jerks. Looking at you, weird Deadpools. So I went to my first con a few years ago. I wasn't brave enough to dress up, so I wanted to take pics instead. I saw a really amazing Doctor Who cosplay, so I asked him for a hug and a pic. He was really enthusiastic about it, and we had a pic ready to go until I heard a gruff, "Hurry up, other people want a hug too." This large middle-aged lady in a tight tank top was giving us this glare. Legit, the cosplayer went from happy to miserable as soon as we took the pic. Like, holy cow, these cosplayers aren't props, they're people. Don't demand physical contact, you have to ask. He definitely didn't give up a hug for her. On the bright side, this year I will be doing a dress-up cosplay, and I hope that it'll be fine. I dressed up as the 11th Doctor at San Diego Comic-Con one year, and I saw a vendor wearing a fez, and so I said nice fez in passing, but I thought he didn't hear me, so I just walked by him. But then I heard a sonic screwdriver noise from behind me, and it was the guy with the fez, and I used my sonic to signal back. It was pretty awesome. This was kinda cringy and hilarious. So at my first con I was dressed as Silk Spectre 2, comic book version. I was still using my cane because I was only a year out from my accident. This guy decides that obviously I'm his one true love or something, and I'm not able to hustle away fast enough to escape easily. I lose him a few times, but he keeps popping up and hitting on me, and making comments about how I should have been Silk Spectre 1. This is at least 2 or 3 hours of this Romeo following me around. Well, somehow I managed to lose him and I end up asking this beefy old dude if he minds that I take the preoccupied chair at his table, since my hips and legs are acting up. Half an hour later we are chatting and having a good old time when my Romeo shows up. Romeo looks at me, Romeo looks at beefy old guy looks at me, and I guess I must have looked scared or creeped out or something because the beefy old guy stands up and leans real close to Romeo's face and says, "Can I help you with something?" Romeo screws off. I eventually get up and walk away when the table gets busy. Then I glance at the banner above the table as I walk away. Beefy old guy was Lou Ferrigno. Dude, I absolutely love con stories like this. I remember another time when I was at San Diego Comic-Con, I was just looking at some random DC figures that were supposed to come out later that year. To my surprise, some dude stands right next to me looking at the same figures. So I kinda catch him out of the corner of my eye, and when I turn to look at him, it's one of the goats of comic book writing, Jeff Johns. My stupid face asks, "Are you Jeff Johns?" And with a smile, he responds, "Yup." I told him that he was a huge inspiration to my writing, and I got a pic. Dude was super cool, even if Snyder Bros would tell you otherwise. I was cosplaying a popular children's show character, Buster from Arthur. A mom tried flirting with me in front of her child after taking the photo. "What you doing later? Wanna grab a coffee?" But the worst thing I've seen? This guy fully walks up to this girl and cups her booba. He wanted to see if they were real. I don't get why there aren't more people getting punched in the face at these cons, because that's exactly what I would do if some random person came up and groped me. I've never been to a con. I'd love to go and cosplay, but I'm afraid of people doing stuff like that, especially after reading this thread of some of the stories. Those kind of things are rare. If you're curious about it, find a friend to go with you. Also, most cons have security and are very clear about harassment policies. They can and will kick out creeps if you report them. Went to a con as Zuko from Avatar. An Aang cosplayer approached me excitedly to talk about the show, but after 10 minutes, pulled out his phone and wanted me to read his X-rated Avatar fanfic. Proceeded to tell me how long he had been working on the fanfic and how he was planning out the rest of the story to have books like the show itself. This thing looked to be novel length by this point. I politely excused myself and left. But this guy later found me on Facebook and sends me NSFW Avatar fan art every now and then. Okay, this is a PSA for all spicy content enjoyers. Some of y'all really need to learn when and when not to talk about spicy content. Learn to read the room, as some would say. I love me some spicy content, but I'm definitely not talking to a person I just met about those interests. Come on, y'all. I had some small cake pieces with me for friends, carried it in an open plastic box in my hands. In the tram to the convention, I met an older lady. We started talking about my costume and what all these funny looking people were here for and so on. While I explained it to her, she was suddenly looking for something in her handbag, pulled out a small plastic spoon and helped herself to my cake while listening to me. I was too confused to say anything and let her finish. I even jumped out of the tram a station earlier because I was worried about more of the cake being eaten. It's a weird story, but looking back now, I should have offered her more. I don't know what it takes for you to eat a stranger's cake in a tram without asking first if you can have some. This is just bizarre. Makes me wonder what her life looks like. Maybe she eats from other plates and tables at restaurants too. Joey doesn't share food! Can I be the cringe? I cosplayed as Naruto when I was 13, and a Sasuke cosplayer who was 14 quote-unquote made out with me, which was basically biting my mouth. It went semi-viral on YouTube to the point where I was offered money. I had forgotten about that video until that email, and then decimated my whole YouTube account when I was 15 or 16. Good lord, I was a horrible weeb, and I have so many stories. A few years back, my then girlfriend was cosplaying Cell from Portal at a con. It was mostly great. Everyone and their mom wanted a photo with her, except this one guy who decided to grill her on how much she really knew about Portal. He was looking at her like he had just found a unicorn, but she was pissed as hell that some stranger thought she needed to prove herself to him. I think he thought it was flirting. Guys, you really need to stop doing this to women. Actually, you just need to stop doing this to anyone. No one should have to prove their fandom to you. And if you are just trying to ask a question, keep it to 1, maybe 2 questions max. If they aren't asking you questions as well, they probably don't want to talk that much. I was cosplaying as Red X from Teen Titans, and I had this 16-year-old girl dressed up as Raven follow me around trying to give me a kiss all day. I was 20 at the time. And no, I didn't kiss her, by the way. I dressed up as Edward Elric. My friend was dressed as Envy from FMA. The show was still super popular back then, and glomping was a thing. Some girl ran up behind me at top speed and jumped on my back. And I'm tall, not short like Ed, and bashed me into a table and brought me to my knees. It was horribly embarrassing and painful. What's glomping? Sounds spicy. Glomping is essentially when someone runs at you full speed and jumps into your arms, or jumps on your back and clings on. Some people even do it without their target knowing it's going to happen, and you get the result of the OP here. It's usually posted around in generic rules listing at big conventions, no glomping, along with cosplay is not consent. There's this YouTuber with millions of followers that got famous for this said glomping. Or at least that's what it seems like. I personally can't stand this creator because I feel like this type of content enables other people to do it at cons. For all I know, they could be a cool person, but they do come off as extremely annoying in those videos. Also, if someone dove at me at full speed, you're getting a Kenny Omega knee to the face. More funny than cringy, but my husband doesn't really attend cons anymore because he feels he's too old for them. Before he stopped going, we attended Anime Central in 2002 in Chicago. We passed by a group of Harry Potter cosplayers wearing striped scarves, and my husband turned to me and said, "It's good to know the kids still like Doctor Who." Some girl asked me to sing a duet in the karaoke room, which I agreed to. 30 seconds in, and I realized that it's some anime song that is sung in Japanese, and it's 8 minutes long. It was the longest and most cringiest 8 minutes of my life while butchering the Japanese language in front of an audience. Not really cosplay, but at the midnight showing of the last Harry Potter movie, I was dressed in a Slytherin t-shirt with my house scarf. I was standing with some friends and some girl came up to me and said that I was everything that was wrong with this world. I asked what she was talking about and she yelled, "Anyone who truly likes Slytherin is a bane on humanity!" I just stared as her friends took her away. At Anime Matsuri last month, I was cross-playing as Prompto, with my friend as Noctis, a much younger Noctis cosplayer. They looked to be around 13 or 14, whereas we were in our mid-20s, came up to us and said that their Prompto really wanted to meet us. We followed this fellow cosplayer over to their group of friends, introduced ourselves to the other Prompto, and took some selfies and had some laughs. Apparently, the kids felt super comfortable around us because they then proceeded to pull out their sketchbooks and show us some explicit fan art they had drawn while loudly describing each spicy scene in detail. Needless to say, my friend and I exchanged a look of abject horror and hightailed it out of there, torn between feeling utterly skeevy and biting down the urge to call their mothers. Obviously, there are kids who wander into the not safe for work side of a fandom, but to have literal children showing me the stuff that they drew in real life was positively jarring. I cosplayed as Skull Kid last year. I don't know how it is at American Comic Cons, but in my country there is a lot of people with signs like free hugs, and sometimes they do it without asking. If this wasn't cringy already, since I 3D printed my mask, the pointy ends were, well, very pointy. When some weeb hugged me without asking, they usually got stabbed by the mask and laughed in an uncomfortable way and ended running off after the hug as soon as possible. I was dressed as Mermaid Man from SpongeBob, and I went up to a table to buy a poster, and this guy was like, "Hey, there's Barnacle Boy here." I said, "Where?" Because I saw no Barnacle Boy at the con yet. He said, "You." And everyone laughed because they didn't realize I wasn't Barnacle Boy and they thought I forgot what my costume was. Screw that guy, I was Mermaid Man. Went to a con with my girlfriend, who was dressed as Black Canary. I was Green Arrow. Naturally, some people asked of pictures of us or with us. Alright, cool, no big deal. What was weird was the number of guys that wanted a picture with just her. One guy even came up, asked if he could take a picture with us, and after we agreed, he handed me the camera. Oh, okay, I see what's happening here. But the cringiest moment was this one guy, maybe 20 years older than us. He asked for a picture of her. We were used to it at this point, so it's whatever. Then proceeds to spend about a good 60 seconds taking the photo. I don't know if he was taking multiple photos or if he was trying to get the perfect booba picture or what. But ain't no way it takes a full minute to take a single photo on a cell phone. Still, the day was super fun and hopefully we get the chance to go back in the future. Man, I wish I could say that cons don't have the creepy guys that take photos, but they are out there and they usually look like the mental picture of the creepy guy that you have in your head. I go to Dragon Con with my wife and like to take photos. Sometimes when I ask cosplay couples for a picture, the guy will usually say, "Did you want me or just her?" And I'm like, "Of course I want you, come on." I always feel bad for those dudes. Like, how many skeezy guys must be coming up and asking for pictures of just the girl? What a weird thing to do. See, I told you, some weird dudes with cameras at every con. I dressed up as Rose Quartz from Steven's Universe, and a neckbeard type guy sort of dressed as a character from the same show approached me by coming up right behind me and said, "Rose, you're my waifu," while I was talking to a vendor. He had the greasiest hair I've ever seen and really bad BO. He asked for a picture and I said okay, and then he asked me to pose like I was kissing his cheek, and I said no. He got upset and said that I had to because he loved Rose, blah 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 blah, and I didn't know how to disengage. Funnily enough, a Pearl cosplayer intervened and told him to beat it. I've never seen Steven's Universe, but if this is how all the characters act in the show, this is a pretty funny interaction. I dressed as Junkrat for a con, and at the time I had no idea how many kids played Overwatch. So for the entire day, All I got was 10-year-olds shouting references and wanting photos with me, and their parents giving me really strange looks. I cosplayed Frankenfurter from the Rocky Horror Picture Show at a Comic-Con about a year ago. I had a lot of pleasant interactions with other cosplayers during the day. Lots of, "Ooh, I love that movie," "Hey, do the time warp," sort of conversations. A few people hit on me. I'm a woman in fishnets and a corset at a Comic-Con. I was expecting that. Nothing too weird or uncomfortable. And then there was this one dude and his friend. They kept following me around, talking to me about weird personal topics and getting far too handsy. Eventually, I started to get nervous, so I excused myself to the bathroom. I just wanted to distance myself from them a little bit. As I go to leave, the guy goes, "Wait! Before you go, can I get a picture?" Okay, fine, just take the photo and then leave me alone. So the guy grabs me, picks me up and throws me over his shoulder so my butt is sticking up in the air, in fishnets and bikini bottoms. And his buddy takes a photo. Then he drops me back on the ground and the two guys take off. It all happened in about 10 seconds, so I barely had time to react. Some guy dressed as Deadpool helped me up and walked me to the security booth to report the guys. But nothing came of it. So that was weird, cringy, and terrifying. I don't cosplay Frank anymore. Dude, I hate this and screw those guys. I hate how people have the ability to just ruin something for people by their actions that they make. Shout out to Deadpool for helping out the OP. Oh man, myself and a few friends occasionally go to cons just to hang out, drink, and buy some merch. But I'll never forget a local con in the early fall of 2008. We usually never go in cosplay, but Guru Login was still in a fever pitch of popularity at the time, and one of my friends was really big on it, and went dressed as Kamina while the rest of us went in regular clothes. It's worth noting that said particular friend is a decent looking 6'4" fellow and was training for a marathon at the time, so he pulled off a pretty damn Kamina. This turned into a day from nerd hell. From the moment we walked into the main hall, he was assaulted in nearly every manner by girl and guy alike. Tons of people wanted pictures with him or of him posing. Endless pictures, and countless times random girls, and a couple of guys, would run out of nowhere and jump onto him, which resulted more often than not, him nearly dragged to the ground by those random attackers. I can actually still remember to this day, one girl screaming, "Kamina-san, I love you!" as she flung herself at my friend. He did his damnedest to be nice and friendly for the pictures, while the rest of us spent more time acting as impromptu bodyguards for him than enjoying the convention. Needless to say, he doesn't care much to cosplay these days. I will say cosplay is fun, but you have to mentally prepare for it. I did a group X-Men cosplay one year, classic cartoon X-Men, and people loved it. We took a bunch of photos, but one thing that I wasn't prepared for was the people in my group wanting to shop and get free stuff. I was in cosplay, I wasn't at the con trying to hold anything other than my cosplay props. Needless to say, there was a little bit of tension in the group after group cosplay day. The only time I ever cosplayed, I cosplayed as one of the Love Live character school uniforms. Blazer, white dress shirt, really short skirt. Literally 5 minutes after showing up to the convention, I turned around on the escalator and caught the dude behind me trying to look up my skirt. Let me go ahead and share my own personal cringe story that actually involves me. Now, I often consider myself someone who can talk or have a conversation with anybody, but it's usually in a chill and comfortable setting. San Diego Comic-Con is neither of those things. It's hectic and crowded. This cringe interaction happened a few years ago. I was randomly walking by a booth and I saw this cosplayer that I follow on social media. She wasn't currently talking to anyone, so I figured why not try and start up a conversation. So I decided to ask her about cosplay, and at this moment she was wearing a green version of a Playboy bunny outfit, which is a pretty common thing at cons, but they're usually combined with a character. I tell her that I enjoyed her work and I was curious if she planned on doing any DC comic characters in the future because I haven't seen her do many. It's at this moment that I want to say she responded with a kind of sarcastic maybe, but that's when some dude wanted a picture with her, so I just said bye and left. I personally felt like the convo was a bit awkward, probably because during the whole conversation I was telling myself not to be the guy that overstays their welcome, which you see a lot at cons. So I just tried to make a quick conversation, which was bad. Anyways, I end up getting on social media later in the day and I see that she posted a photo of herself at the con. Turns out the Playboy bunny outfit that she was wearing was a version of Poison Ivy, a DC character. She even had a small little plant-like prop with her to show that she was Poison Ivy. I just completely face-palmed when I realized what I had asked her earlier in the day, and it made sense why her response felt kinda sarcastic. Definitely not my brightest moment. That's it for this video. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories. Link at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. It's linked in the description too. Either way, thanks a lot for watching and we'll see you guys next time.